So I don't even know where to begin, but I will begin on this video here. I just really been trying to, how would you say, trying to receive all of this information um, and trying to, see what I see out there, especially here in California. So I don't know what city you live in and state you live in. Maybe you see something unusual because a lot of times when you hear the news, they tell you things that either they leave out a lot of important information or they don't tell you all of the truth of what is really going on with this virus and, COVID and how people are dealing with it in different communities. They'll tell you maybe bits and pieces or as much as they can. And then the rest of it, depending on, you know, how important they think it is for mainstream um, viewers. Some of that information is left out because there are some communities that I really do believe still we have people that operate what is shown on television and they operate how government is run and who's going to get and who's not going to get um, the benefit of finances and help with different crises such as this. And so what I've noticed is yesterday I had went to a hospital, and usually this hospital is really, bustling and it has like a lot of chairs, a lot of people, a lot of traffic. And so I know that before I went to the hospital yesterday and all this week, I've been hearing about how the numbers of COVID cases, um, or the deaths rather, have been dropping. And basically, the news is making it as though we should look at things optimistically on a high note and, be ready for normalcy for what was before this pandemic started. And I'll be honest with you, I wish I had better news. I don't think things will ever really get back completely to normal because that is not what I'm seeing in the community where I'm at is here in California, Los Angeles, South LA. And I'm gonna be real honest. For one, for starters, you still have a lot of people who have not received the vaccines. And I have been seeing people that look like they don't even live in the community and they're able to access the vaccines at the sites that are closest in the area, even in proximity to where I live. And what I noticed is a lot of these people look like they're coming from far out. And just yesterday on the news, they mentioned that a number of people were able to get access codes. Now, how they were able to do that, I do not know, except that had to be somebody from the inside that was allowing these people to get access codes so they can secure an appointment to get a vaccine shot. And so people have been trying to do all kinds of things, cutting in line. They've been showing up, staying out there, and, taking the place of people who really need the shots. Um, so there's been a lot of cutting. There's been a lot of lying and cheating. People even dressing up like they're older people to claim that they're 65 and older or 75 and older so they can get these shots. So that is another thing I've observed. There's been a lot of anger towards Gavin Newsom because of how he's either not or how he is handling situations. I'll be honest with you, he's one person and he's human and he's allowed to make mistakes, but I understand that people are angry, but a lot of this stuff happened before he even got here in office. And so I feel like he's the easiest one to blame. And lately, what he's been trying to do is ease up on a lot of the restrictions. And I believe the reason why he's doing that is because of the pressure and the heat that he's getting from the public about him being recalled or being pushed out of his position. And I don't really see what he's doing that has really made anything any worse than it already was before he got in office. I feel as though anybody they get in there at this point is probably going to do about the same as anyone else, because a lot of this, of what we see, the homelessness, a lot of the people that we see that are on the streets, this was happening a lot earlier on before Newsom even stepped into office. And I'm just going to be honest about that. I believe a lot of those people, too, were brought over here because, like we're hearing about Texas having the snow and, they're not having power. They just barely got power turned on. A lot of their pipes were busted, and now they're having a water crisis because the pipes were busted. They were told to boil water, and the water could have something in it. It could be bad for them to drink. Or maybe they can't even drink any water, because all the pipes are messed up. Um, and so they have like a lot of water that they're trying to distribute to people out there. So everywhere you look, you notice that there's something happening everywhere. And then Ted Cruz is getting a lot of heat because he took a trip to Cancun. So I don't really know that, a lot of these people really, even if you switch people out of positions, I don't know that they could have done any better than what's already been messed up. I mean, I feel like Biden, he's the cleanup president. He's cleaning up where all these other things have been messed up, and then there's some things people are not happy. They're saying that they wish he would do more of. But what I've seen is here in South LA, a lot of people aren't getting shots. There's a lot of death. I'm just gonna get real honest about it. I believe that the people who are working, they're working on borrowed time until they get sick or they somehow contract the virus. Um, the reason I'm saying this is because there's new variants of the virus that is out, and so what they were trying to do was trying to get as many people vaccinated as they could before these variants reared their ugly heads. And so these variants are here. Um, Now, what the news hadn't really said, and I believe maybe somebody's controlling this, they don't want people to panic. And then some people have gotten so um, worn out by this virus and the lockdowns, they don't even have fear anymore. But they should, because these new variants are more deadlier. And yeah, I'm going to say that. They're more deadlier, more contagious, and they're spreading like wildfire. And places are noticed that schools, not all the schools are open. And the schools that are open is because, at different cities, different states, and different governors will permit things to happen. And it's really just a stage. They're trying to see, basically, your kids are like guinea pigs. We are guinea pigs. They're trying to see how these things are going to work out. The first sign of people getting sick in great numbers, they're going to shut things back down again. And I know people don't want to hear that, but that is what's going to happen. And it's not because the governors are bad or because they're bad decision makers. It's because they're getting a lot of pressure from like the public to reopen things, and a lot of people want to get back to normal as fast as they can because they're worried about other outside issues like foreclosure, not being able to have a place to live, not being able to have a job to pay rent, and then the landlords are worried about for being foreclosed or are not being able to pay their bills, and so people want to rush to get back to normalcy, but it isn't going to be that way. And so a lot of problems have happened from the time this whole thing broke out. When they finally started rolling out the vaccines, not everyone was following the rules. They had these who's next, my turn, and get in line and wait your turn. Well, people don't operate like that, especially when there's a pandemic, a crisis, a virus. People are afraid, there's a lot of fear. And then, too, you have some people that are just plain out dishonest. Um, so there's a number of those things that were going on. People were somehow getting access codes to appointments. That's why when people were trying to go on to get appointments, you go on there, you get through the online portal to make your appointment, and then it says 0 appointments in your area. Yet, when you drive past these little megapod sites or these small pod sites, or you see certain areas, you notice there are people getting shots. They're able to get these appointments, and you're you're clueless as to how this is happening. Like, how is it that every time I log on, I cannot get an appointment, even though it says there are appointments available? They'll even have some things listed on there saying appointments available, but then when you get to the end, it says 0 appointments. So somehow people are able to get in there, but the people who live in the communities that are close by these pod sites are not able to get in there to get a shot. Well, I'm here to tell you, you might not be having to worry about those shots after all, because now they're going to speed up the process. And you know why? Because these variants are so bad and so deadly and so contagious. They're doubling every 18 days. And they're going to probably phase out these tiers and all of this stuff. Get in line, my turn, wait, and all this. There is going to be a mad dash to get more and more people vaccinated, because they knew this was a big screw up when they started this from the get-go. So it may be too late. And because you had so many people that were getting these access codes to get these shots, and then there were people that were cutting in line, coming from way out from other cities that don't even live in the community, you hear all of this rhetoric and these people talking about the poverty and the poor neighborhoods, and they, pretty much stigmatize people in quote unquote ghetto neighborhoods. But notice they're not afraid to come over here and get access to shots in these neighborhoods. And let me say that again. They talk about these neighborhoods and talk about black on black crime and all of these things like that, and you hear all this rhetoric, but somehow they're not afraid to get these access codes and come to the hood and get these shots and step in the place of people who actually need it, people that are living in these communities that are suffering. And so what I've noticed here is that the news doesn't really say that much about how serious this has been getting. And I believe they've been leaving it out because of the fear factor in it. They don't want to create the panic and the fear, but I believe they need to be honest. And so specifically here in California, the coronavirus variant has been identified in California. It seems more infectious and deadly. So the study found that the case thought to be doubling every 18 days. And so, but the scale of the threat, they claim it's unclear. Now, some of the scientists and the epidemiologists and some of the people that are, the head of these health organizations are kind of, scaling back on the information. Some have come out with it, and others have kind of said we need to see more data, more proof about the severity of this. But some, however, have said that they've got enough proof. They just need to be honest to people and tell them this is more contagious, more deadlier. And what I've noticed is that when I went to the hospital yesterday, they meet you at the front of the building. They won't even let you in the building, even if you have made an appointment to go see a physician. This is what I've experienced here within the month. If you're going to the courthouse, they're even giving people options to do court online, where you can not even show up to the courthouse. You can do court online. You have to call and make an appointment just to show up to the courthouses. Anytime you have public, government operated, and health operated organizations that will meet you at the door, this thing is not over yet. Not by a long shot. It is not over. It is not all happy like the news is saying. It is not, let's be optimistic, the deaths are dropping. We're just seeing what's happening right now from people that are just getting maybe vaccinated, and they might have had the first variant of the virus. We're not seeing what's happening to the people that are now newly infected with these worst strains of the variants of the virus, which here it says it's doubling every 18 days, and it's more deadly and more infectious. And it's already here in California. And so, I know I went through many articles. This one is by a Dr. Catherine Schuster Bruce, and basically it says the studies. Now you're going to hear stuff back and forth. There's wavering between doctors and people who are scientists, people who are, in the health field. They're sort of like they have this peer review, and they have to come to a consensus, I guess a collective consensus, as to based on data numbers of how many people have gotten infected and what their outcomes are. And so, but a lot of people that look at what these variants are, the ones that have been studying, the ones that have been looking at it, and you're going to hear in a minute, basically say this is nothing to play with. This is nothing to play with. It's more infectious, more deadly. It's doubling every 18 days. Even one doctor, he basically said the devil is here. So, from what I'm looking at and what I'm seeing when I went to the hospital, they moved all the chairs out. There's been offices I've been to, literally you cannot even, they even have like signs on windows of restaurants, only 3 people in the restaurant. There's been jobs where they'll hire people, and the reason why there's such a higher turnover is because people have been getting sick. They've been getting infected with these new variants. And here's the really bad news. These new variants, they're not only more contagious, doubling every 18 days, and more deadlier. The reason why they're more deadlier is because they can get around these vaccines that people have been going and getting these shots. They're saying that these vaccines may not even be able to withstand some of these new variants. These new variants are more able to go around the immune system. They're even more able to get into the lungs and infect people and put you in the hospital. So I don't know why the news is not really saying this. I don't know if maybe somebody's telling them, hey, don't talk about this. But people need to know. And so you have all these people that are mad at Gavin Newsom, and he's got all this pressure to try to ease up on things, all because he's afraid he's going to lose his job and his position doing all he can do, really. I mean, he didn't bring the virus here. Initially, when it had started out, the one who could have told us about this, and I hate to be the one to say this, is actually Trump. He knew that this was coming, and he didn't say anything for a long time. And so, yet you have all his followers and all these people who support him, even still to this day. And so you don't hear as much scrutiny towards his handling of this virus as you do people that are angry with Newsom. So, this was happening even before he got here. I feel like the homeless thing, that has been happening. I just think that it's escalated because of all of the high rents and not having places to live, and then two, there's everybody's stories are different. So all of those homeless people are not out there homeless for the same reasons, synonymously. They're not all out there on the street for the same reasons. And I do believe that more recently they have been relocating homeless populations from other places and dumping them here in California, or in places that they feel the weather is a little more or less damaging, I guess, to the outside elements, are not as it's not as cold. Maybe it's not as it's not as bad to survive in if you're outdoors. I feel that even still, it's bad. But two, it could also be, I don't know if anybody remembers this far back, even when Trump was saying that he wanted to defund sanctuary cities, and he was upset because he said they wanted to have the people who were undocumented here. And then there was even talk about dumping people off who didn't have places to live in sanctuary cities, and that was going to be a punishment, and also defunding communities that were already struggling and in poverty behind these political pundit attitudes and the rhetoric that he was giving. This was when he was in office. And so I don't know if people were following that as I was closely. I noticed not much was said about it. People looked at it, or maybe they didn't even take it serious. But this Skid Row has exploded, and it's not just here in California and LA, it's everywhere. Notice that there's a lot of homelessness everywhere, and so something is obviously wrong, when it comes to people's livelihood and being able to have a place to stay. But now we've got this crisis, and not much is being said about how this is getting not just out of control, but it's become at a point where it's so deadly that even the vaccines may not help for the new variants. And so, as some experts say, more data is needed before the strain is considered especially dangerous. So this article will waver back and forth. So I gotta remind you that. So an early study has suggested that the coronavirus variant first found in California is more infectious than the original virus strain, more likely to be associated with severe illness and partially resistant to the antibodies. Okay, so the devil is already here. This is Charles Shuey, an infectious disease physician and sequencing expert at the University of California at San Francisco, who led the study, told Los Angeles Times. I wish it were different, but the science is science. So other experts say more data is needed before conclusions are drawn out about the variant. But the variant consists of two slightly different mutated forms of the virus called B.1.427 and B.1.429. It is also called B.1.420C, I believe. So using another naming system. So was first found in California in July and has now been detected across the U.S. and elsewhere, including Australia, Denmark, Mexico, and Taiwan, according to the GISAID. Okay, so the study authors said the variant should likely be designated a variant of concern, warranting urgent follow-up investigation. So this is where they get back on base and start telling you the seriousness of these variants. So Science has reported this on Tuesday. So the variant of concern is a variant that has been risk assessed by experts for concerning features such as being highly infectious, making people sicker, or escaping the immune response produced by vaccines. Okay, so those shots that people have been cutting in line to get, you might be wasting all your energy and all your time doing that. First of all, you shouldn't be doing it. But now you're probably going to get something that you don't want because the vaccines that you're taking may not even help you. So the study has not been posted online or formally scrutinized by experts in peer review. So Eric Topol, founder of the director of the Scripps Research Translational Institute, said that on Twitter that there was a problem with labeling the variant dangerous without the study being published, or while COVID-19 cases, hospitalizations, and deaths were falling despite the variant being widespread. So this is why sometimes they try to be optimistic. We've been hearing, oh, it's falling, things are getting better. Be careful of that, okay? Don't go out. Notice they're still saying don't go out without a mask. Don't go out without washing. Make sure you wash your hands because they know that these variants are floating around out there and people are still getting sick. People are still dying and they're not revealing all of this. So if I were a reviewer, I would want to see more data. So this is where they kind of bounce back and forth these issues of having more data about these new variants. Okay, so the data from the more infected people to substantiate this very provocative claim. This is coming from David O'Connor, a viral sequencing expert at the University of Wisconsin at Madison, told Science. So Chu and his colleagues examined 2,172 virus samples collected from 44 of the California's 58 counties from September 1st to January the 29th. So at the start of September, they found no cases caused by B.1.427 and B.1.429. But by late January, the variant accounted for more than half of the cases sequenced. Okay, so that means it was starting to just circulate in the population and starting to pass on from person to person. So from the data, Chu and his colleagues estimated that a number of cases caused by the variant was doubling every 18 days. New York Times reported they also have a variant that is sweeping across New York and people are getting sick all over again. So I'm increasingly convinced that this one is transmitting more than others locally. William Hanich, an epidemiologist of Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health, told the New York Times, but there's not evidence to suggest that it's the same ballpark as B.1.1.7. So the variant that first identified in UK that many project will become the dominant strain in the US. So the variant has a key mutation. So the study authors identified some possibilities as to why the B.1.427 and B.1.429 variant could be more infectious. First, they found that there was twice the amount of the virus on nasal swabs from those who were infected with these new variants. I'll say the new variants because they're B.1.427 and B.1.429. So there was on those who weren't, then there was on those who didn't have it. And this could mean that people with that variant carry more virus particles, which makes them more likely to pass the virus on to others. So that's how this one is more contagious. So the second variant in California has mutated, and it's called L452R in its spike protein. And that's the part of the virus that's used to infect the cells in our bodies. So the authors that engineered a coronavirus within the L452R mutation and found it was able to infect human lung tissue at 40% more readily than other variants and was 3 times as infectious. So the L452R hasn't been seen in the existing variants of concern. So third, the scientists found that the antibodies produced in the human body to fight this infection off worked only half as well against the B.1.427 and B.1.429 as they did with the original variant, the one that first came out. And so the effect was less pronounced than the variant first discovered in South Africa, which was found to reduce the antibodies' efficacy to 1/6 of their usual levels. So if antibodies work less well, it could mean there's an increased risk of infection, and the vaccines that people are getting could be less effective. Another preprint study, however, has found that the variant first found in California produced similar antibody response to the original coronavirus. So Chu, I may not be saying his name correctly, and his team also said the variant could be more deadly as well. And so the team studied 324 medical records, UCSF clinics, and its medical center, and found those carrying the variant were 4.8 times as likely to be admitted to intensive care and more than 11 times as likely to die compared to those infected with other variants, scientists reported. So Chu's team said it adjusted for differences in age, gender, and ethnicity. So the sample was small, though it was not possible to tell whether more people died because of B.1.427 and B.1.429 variant itself, or whether it overwhelmed hospitals and possible suboptimal care as a result contributed to their deaths, and the author has said this. And so this article right here I thought was really important because it basically brings more information out. I know it's a lengthy article, but it tells you that this thing's doubling every 18 days. So this is more contagious and more deadly, and the possibility is that they're not really talking about it as much. Yesterday on the news, they mentioned that people were using codes. Somehow they acquired these codes to get the vaccine shots. Then early this morning, I was reading something. It was real brief and then it popped off. It was Gavin Newsom, and he was saying, oh, we might try to ease up and we will probably phase out the tiers for the vaccine shots, meaning they would, stop this, my turn, wait until your turn to get a shot. And now they're saying that they have pharmacies that are getting shipments of the vaccine. They're trying to phase it out because they know these variants are so bad, and they've discovered that. And so now they're trying to, all the people who weren't getting shots, you might have a chance to get your shot now because these variants are so bad. They know they screwed up by doing this wait your turn and 65 and older, and let's start with this worker and let's start with that worker, when they should have been doing all along, letting everybody get these shots so that they could, bypass what's happening right now. I believe when they were doing these, everybody line up and get your shot kind of stuff, that really did not work out well because not everybody was following things like they should have. That's not the COVID, but this was the COVID. So basically, people were not really doing what they were supposed to be doing. And so, when you have, just a general line of people. You have lines of people. There are going to be people that are going to lie. There are people going to cheat. There are people going to try to fake who they are to get their shot. And they're going to try to do things to try to get in there, to get in first, to get at the front of the line. People are going to do lots of things that they shouldn't do to get a shot, a vaccine shot. They're not going to be perfectly organized. They're not going to stand 6 feet apart and be cordial. They're going to do all kinds of things to try to get in there. And then people that have been waiting forever for a shot will wonder, they keep going to these, calling or trying to go online or asking their physician, can they get a shot? You're going to be sitting there frustrated because you don't know what to do, because you've been waiting, and then you're hearing these stories about the shots may not work or the shots may kill you. Or you might have a severe reaction. You're not sure what to do, so you're at your wit's end. So I'm just saying that now they have really done it. The people that are waiting, for these shots, it might be too little, too late. We might end up seeing this again, where you're going to have more people getting sick, more people going to the ER, more ambulance, more people that are infected with the new variants, and all of this stuff by having people waiting in lines. Let's skip bypass all of this. Waiting in lines. They might not be waiting in a line to get a shot. They might be waiting and, trying to get to the ER because now they've gotten infected. And so it's just sad. I don't think they did this thing. They really did this thing, the right way. I think it's too little too late. And more people are going to get sick. More people are going to die. I think there's more things that are going to happen with this virus. And it's going to be because of the new variants. Let's skip by that. But yeah, people in the community, black people, are not getting the shots. And some of it is because of fear, because of beliefs. And then the other is because you just can't get in to get an appointment. You can't get in to get an appointment to get a shot. That's the other. The ones who want to get it, you can't get it. It's just like the lady sitting there in the hallway. You can't get in. And you've been doing everything that you've been trying to do, and you can't get in to get. You can't, even if you do it the right way, you can't get a shot. And now this is what's happening. This is a result of people who are not honest and who aren't telling the truth, I believe. This thing has gotten so bad that it is mutated, and now it's out in the public and they don't know what to do. And so now Gavin Newsom, he doesn't know what to do. He's been doing all that he can do, and people are hounding him and they want him out for something he didn't create. And so these variants that are coming, they're coming like wildfire. And so now he's like trying to ease up on restrictions because of the pressure. I believe it's these people who, you got these parents, they're fighting the school unions. And some of those parents, let me be honest, and I don't want to be mean here, but I'm just going to be honest. Some of these parents have these kids and they don't know what to do with them. And they look at the schools as babysitting sites. And they want to dump their kids there. Let me be honest, that's what's happening. Some of them are like that. Some of them, however, are saying that their kids are losing learning. They're not. They're losing their education. They're not learning anything. They're losing their learning. Now what about the kids who go to school when school was open and they still weren't learning. And you were using the school as a dumping ground, like a babysitting site. And you weren't working with your kids at home, even when the teacher asked you to help your kids with homework and help your kids with learning. You weren't even that concerned about them learning. But now that no schools are open because of this crazy virus and the deadliness of it, you don't know what to do. Your kids are driving you crazy, and you just want somewhere to leave them. So let's be honest, we have some people that are like that. That's what's going on. They're putting pressure on the unions to open up the schools. And then you have teachers. They don't even care about the teachers. Some of them are getting sick and dying. They got families too. So let's be honest here. That's what's going on with some of this. Now, some of it is sad because we do have kids that are losing out, and it's unfortunate. But you got to look at the big picture here. Do you want your kids, now that they're not in school, you don't see as many kids getting sick. But start gathering them back in these rooms that are hot, they're cramped, they don't have any windows. Some of those classrooms don't have any windows. The ventilation system is so poor in there. When there was no virus and you were in those classrooms, the teachers had to fight to get the air condition turned on. The teachers had to fight to get the heat turned on. The ventilation systems are subpar. The maintenance people would come and fix something and would put a band-aid on it or a piece of tape on it and break down and come back again just so they can get a paycheck. Basically, that's what it is. It's just taxpayer dollars going to piss down the drain. So that's basically what it is. I'm just being upfront and honest. I know about the school districts and the stuff that they do. And so you have people at the top in the school district who are making all the money, and the teachers and the little aides and all the little workers don't make nothing but peanuts. They don't make anything. And then you have parents, some that are working with their kids, and others who don't really work with their kids. They just, it's neglect. So the school's a dumping ground. And so that's what happens, unfortunately. And then you got schools in areas that are more affluent, and you notice there's a lot of learning going on, a lot of new material, and a lot of people are invested in their kids' education. And then the subpar schools that are at risk, they need to be shut down anyway because nothing works. And if it works, it's going to work for a couple of days, and then the maintenance team's going to be back there again so they can collect the check for something that's going to stay broken, because that's how they make their money, is saying, we fixed it, and then as soon as it rains, you see the ceiling is caving in. So, the kids are in classrooms where there's no windows. Some classrooms have windows and some don't. I've seen some classrooms that don't have no windows. The only window they have, there is no window. It's just the door. They open the door. And you know where those schools are located. It depends on the buildings, and there's some buildings that are really old. So, there's a whole bunch of junk going on, and they're not really talking about this. They don't talk about this in the news. They leave a lot of information out. And in the poor neighborhoods, the people who really needed the shots weren't even getting the shots. And so now look what we're looking at right here. You see that? You see that title right there? Doubling every 18 days. All these people coming from out of the neighborhood, rushing to get shots in neighborhoods they hated. They despised. All they did was talk about how the black on black crime this and these people, and we hate the homeless, we hate poverty. But you don't hate coming over here lying and cheating and cutting in line and getting shots that you weren't supposed to even get. And now look what's happening. So anyway, I'm going to leave this video. There's one for you to grow on, but take a look at this one. New coronavirus variant is spreading in New York, researchers reported. Before I end this article, I want you to see this one. The variant contains a mutation thought to help the virus dodge immune system, scientists say. Same thing. Okay, people lined up outside Medgar Evers College in Brooklyn for vaccines and vaccination appointments on Wednesday. So this is by Porva Mandavia. Okay, so hopefully I said your name correctly. Sorry if I didn't. So this was on the 24th of February. A new form of the coronavirus is spreading rapidly in New York City as well. And it carries a worrisome mutation that may weaken the effectiveness of vaccines. Two teams of researchers have found the new variant called B.1.427 appeared in samples collected in the city in November. So by the middle of this month, it accounted for about one of the 4 viral sequences appearing in the database shared by the scientists. So one study in the new variant led by a group of Caltech was posted online on Tuesday. The other by a researcher at Columbus University. The university is not yet public. And so at the end of this article, they kind of have like an optimistic upside of this, but let me tell you, don't buy into that. So neither study has been vetted. So there you go, back and forth on their article as well, on their ideas by peer review once again. So nor published in scientific journals, but the consistent results suggest that the variant spread is real. Okay, experts say. And so it's not particularly happy news. See, they have it in quotes. This is by a Michael Newsonwig, and he's an immunologist at the Rockefeller University who was not involved in new research. But just knowing about it is good because then we can perhaps do something about it. So Dr. Newsonwig said that he was more worried about the virus in New York than the one quickly spreading here in California even. So yet another contagious new variant discovered in Britain now accounts for about 2,000 cases in 45 states. And so it is expected to become the most prevalent form of the coronavirus in the U.S. by the end of March. So researchers have been scrutinizing the genetic material of the virus to see how it might be changing. So they examined genetic sequences of the virus taken from a small proportion of infected people to chart the emergence of the new versions. So Caltech researchers discovered the rise of B.1.427 by scanning for the mutations in hundreds and thousands of viral genetic sequences in a database. This is the GISAID or GISAID. Okay, that's what they're called. So there was a pattern that was reoccurring, and a group of isolates concentrated in the New York region that I hadn't seen, said Anthony West, a computational biologist at Caltech. So he has said that his colleagues found 2 versions of coronavirus increasing in frequency. And so one is the E484K mutation seen in the South Africa and Brazilian region, which is thought to help the virus partially dodge the vaccines. Once again, we're hearing how it could bypass these vaccines and still be infectious and deadly. So another with a mutation called the S477N, which may affect how tightly the virus binds to human cells as well. And so these are not good things, I know, that I'm sharing with you, but I think people should know, because a lot of times they don't mention all of this and go into detail about it, but I believe that's the reason why we don't really see anything opening completely up. And the things that we do see in our states opening up is because of the pressure they're getting for public to reopen things, because they're afraid they're going to lose their jobs. So they're doing this because they feel like if I don't reopen stuff, if I don't ease up stuff, if I don't give people, if I keep things on lockdown, they're going to fire me. Mr. Newsom. So I think that's what's happening. So the Columbia University researchers took a different approach to sequence 1,142 samples from patients at their medical center. So they found that 12% of the people with the virus have been infected with the variant that contains the mutation E484K. See, look at all of these. There's a lot more variants than what we know as well. That's what it sounds like. It's multiplying, it's changing like rapidly as well. So that's what I've discovered by the way they are explaining this. So patients infected with the virus carrying the mutation were about 6 years older on average and more likely to have been hospitalized. And while the majority of patients were found in neighborhoods close to the hospital, particularly Washington Heights and Inwood, there were several other cases scattered throughout the metropolitan area. Dr. David Ho, director of Aaron Diamond AIDS Research Center. So we have seen cases in Westchester, the Bronx, Queens, lower part of Manhattan, and Brooklyn. Dr. Ho says so. It seems to be widespread. So it's not a single outbreak. So that's not sounding good either. So the team also identified 6 cases of the variant that pummeled Britain, 2 infections with the variant identified in Brazil, and 1 case of the variant that took over South Africa as well. So later, 2 had not been reported in New York City before Dr. Ho said. So the university investigators have alerted the authorities of New York State and in the city as well as the Center of Disease Control Prevention. Dr. Ho said. So he and his colleagues plan to sequence 100 viral genetic samples a day to monitor the variant's rise. So this is the stuff that I think people are not really aware of, the severity of this, but this thing is spreaded like crazy. And so this is, I believe, going to be another phase. We're going to see more people sick with something even stronger than the first thing that we initially thought was out. And there's so many different variations of this. Who knows how this is going to end up. And so I'm looking for more people to be sick, more people to probably die, more people to end up in the hospital. Right now, we're seeing a period where people who had the first, I'm thinking these are the people who got first infected by the first virus variant. But these new ones that are floating around, we're not going to see the numbers drop like they are now. They're going to start slowly, gradually peaking again. And then, who knows? We're probably not seeing what it really looks like on those charts because they're keeping it from the public because they don't want to scare people. But they need to let people know how serious this is so that the people can look and be like, this thing ain't over yet. And I also saw where Dr. Fauci was saying that don't think just because you got a shot that you could take your mask off and go back to normal. And so I think that's the problem. People want things to be like what they were before these diseases came. And it just isn't going to be like that. So anyway, I'm going to leave this video. And I know this was long, but I've been really paying attention. And I don't think we're out of the woods yet. That's basically what I'm saying. We're not out of the woods. This is not over. And everything is not safe again. And so just because he's easing up on things, Newsom in California, just because he's easing up on things doesn't mean, oh, let's take off our masks. Let's go back to normal. No, it is not normal. Not if something is doubling every 18 days. So having said that, I'm going to let this video go. You don't have to believe me, but this is what is happening. All I know is when I go to the hospital, when I went to the hospital yesterday and I saw that they wouldn't even let you go up in the building without asking you who you were and if you actually in fact had an appointment. And when I went in the waiting room and there were only one person there and myself, they're trying to keep track of the numbers of people going in there for a reason. And if this thing was over with, then why do you got to do that? Why is it that now you're suggesting to me that if I want to go and do business at the courthouse, I have the option of going online and paying everything online, and well, wish they already were doing that, but like court cases are backed up, and now they give you the option to do your court hearings online. When have they ever done that? If everything was back to normal, they don't have to do that, do they? You can just go walk in the building and do what you have to do, but no. Schools, universities are not opening up. Think about it. Because they know if they have packed those rooms down with people again, they know what's going to happen with these new variants. Anyway, having said that, let's see what happens with the kids. Kids can get sick. As soon as those kids start getting sick, you're going to see those parents yanking those kids out of that school. They don't care what kind of filtration system you put in there. If one kid dies, two kids die, they start seeing a trend or an ugly pattern now, you watch how those kids' parents yank them out of there as fast as possible. They're not going to do it. You're going to see more homeschooling. That's what you're going to see. They're going to have to rechange all of this. Thanks for listening.